Chapter 2641. The staff member was shocked and asked, "Why isn't the filming done in Dorywood? We can hire famous actors from Zelakova, like the one that Mr. Busha did." Donnie shook his head. "This is different. I wanted to shoot in the Kong ports because it has a very strong vintage look and mysterious vibes. Those are the effects that I'm trying to achieve, and the main focus is on the mystery of the NPC's suicide and the memories that return to the other characters after they're no longer drunk." The crew whispered among each other and seemed to be accepting his idea. Norman crossed his fingers, rested his chin on them, and then smiled. "I think your suggestion is great because the script contains many vintage styles, like the printing press, the hanging calendar in the victim's home, the radio, and so on. If we don't use it as the background in the scenes, it will lose the mysterious vibes of the story." After that, he looked toward Freya. "Miss Pruitt also hopes that her script will be perfectly translated to the big screen, right?" Freya paused, then slowly said, "I was thinking if it would have a better effect if it were set in the past, but after hearing what Donnie said, I'm confident about it. The story is different from the other murder mysteries. It's like a puzzle that needs solving with pieces of memories. When there's the element of the past, it has an extra touch of unique colors and will give layers of mystery." Donnie nodded and closed the file. "Let's start preparing then." Freya walked out of Tom's Films, and Leia was waiting for her downstairs. "How did it go? Is the filming confirmed?" Freya smiled and nodded. "Yes." Leia walked next to her. "I'm so jealous. Professor Merlin said that if your screenplay gets turned into a script, you'll be able to graduate earlier. You'll become a famous screenwriter after this and maybe a director." Freya looked down. "I don't plan to become a director." Leia asked, "Why not?" Freya smiled at her. "Because I need to spend more time with my daughter. I wouldn't have time if I became a director." Leia immediately understood. It was because of her daughter. "I guess people do give up on things after having kids. I guess, but to me, writing a screenplay at home and spending time with my daughter is good enough." Freya got home and FaceTimed Colton, who was holding Charm. Seeing how Charm had grown chubbier and was no longer a little baby, Freya chuckled. "You made her chubby. It's not me. It's her grandfather." Colton held her hand and waved to Freya. "Charm, this is your mommy." Freya called her name, and Charm looked around, but Colton guided her face back to the screen. "Here." Charm held out her hands to touch the screen. Freya pressed her hand on the screen too. "Charm, I'll be back to see you soon." Colton was surprised. "You're coming back." She smiled. "I'm going to the Kong ports to check out some shooting locations. So Basberg is on the way there." Colton clicked his tongue and turned his face away. "Glad you remember to see us. If you don't want me to come back, I just won't come then." "I didn't say that." He sounded as if he was worried that she wouldn't come back, then he cleared his throat. "Your daughter isn't going to recognize you if you don't come back soon." Chapter 2642. Freya leaned in close to the screen. "I should let her remember this face then. She can remember it when you're here." Colton looked down at Charm. "Right, my baby. Don't listen to your mom trying to trick us." She smiled. "Don't worry, I'll be there with you in less than a year." Colton looked at her. "We'll be here waiting. By the way, how's Dee Dee?" "She's good. Ever since she started spending time with Beatrice, she has become much happier and made many friends. She even went to a dance class with Beatrice." Freya smiled. "I guess Beatrice plays a big part in her change. I need to bring presents for both of them when I return." "What about my present?" "I'm your present." Colton covered Charm's ears and leaned close to the screen. "Do I get to unwrap you?" "You wish." After Freya said that, she ended the call. Colton was left hanging. He looked down at Charm and tapped the tip of her nose. "Your mommy keeps bullying me. I need to teach her a lesson when she returns." Meanwhile, Cameron went downstairs after she woke up and heard a few men talking to Waylon about herself. She didn't know who she had offended because they sounded unhappy about her. Waylon took a sip of his tea. "Do you have any complaints about her?" "Master Wayne, that woman is not fit to be a Goldman. She made you treat Miss Woods that way. You've known Miss Woods for years, and we know how she is. She cares about you, and when you're not around, She misses you a lot, but you. Did she pay you off? The few men were stunned when Waylon asked them that question and looked shocked. How could you think of her this way? Waylon placed his cup down and looked calm. You're from the night banquet. How long have you known her, and how long have you known me? Do you know her better than you know me? The men were quiet. They knew Evelyn had feelings for Waylon and were just feeling sorry for her since they could see how much she liked him. Is there some misunderstanding between Miss Woods and you? There isn't. You are the ones who misunderstood. Waylon looked indifferent. I don't know what she said to you, but I won't allow anyone to dishonor my wife. I've also never said that Evelyn was someone I plan to marry, so don't make your own guesses. Upon seeing Waylon was slightly unhappy, the few men stopped speaking. Cameron walked down with arms crossed. I really don't understand this. Are you trying to persuade my husband into cheating? The few men choked. Waylon looked at her. Why did you come downstairs? I came down because I've had enough sleep, but I wasn't expecting to listen in on such an interesting conversation. Where's Evelyn? Why isn't she here but is just fanning the fire in hiding? Cameron sat down on the couch. One of the men said, Miss Woods didn't fan. Cameron smirked and cut him off. Why did you come then? To force my husband to accept her love. Have you considered how we would feel? You're from the night banquet. The Southern clan would have kicked everyone who doesn't use their brains out. What is that supposed to mean? It's exactly as I said. Cameron stared at them. Evelyn doesn't even dare stand up and fight for herself and instead is just hiding in the background. That's so childish. Chapter 2643. Cameron's words rendered everyone there speechless. Her arrogance wasn't expected. Waylon chuckled and raised his hand to touch Cameron's hair. Are you angry? I offended someone, and it was because of some woman. How could I not be angry? Cameron pushed his hand away and pointed at the men. Tell me, what else did Miss Woods say to you? What did I do to her? I'll tear your lips off your face if you can't do that. How could you be so unreasonable? They finally witnessed her arrogance. I've always been unreasonable, and I even prefer letting my knuckles speak. Do you want to give it a try? She made it evident that she was challenging them. The men looked at Waylon. She was his wife, so they couldn't just start fighting her. Waylon calmly said, why don't you do as she says since you have opinions about her? What are you? Was he telling them to fight a woman? Cameron raised her brows and smiled. Even Master Wayne has spoken, so what's wrong? Are you afraid? We're not afraid, but we don't want to put a woman in a tough spot. Cameron scoffed, got up, and walked toward them. You're just cowards. You don't want to put a woman in a tough spot, but weren't you doing just that earlier? When it comes to Knuckles, you're suddenly not interested anymore. The men looked upset but held back their anger. Mrs. Goldman, I know you're annoyed, but we have our principles. You're trying to make us attack you, but if we hurt you, what will people say? Cameron smirked and calmly said, it's fine. If you hurt me, I'll hand Wayne over to Evelyn. But if you can't, I want you to apologize and then go back and tell Miss Woods to stay away from my husband, alright? The men looked at each other because they didn't know what to do. Waylon slowly got up. What's wrong? Didn't you want to know if she was the best person to be your mistress? What are you waiting for? Hearing that Waylon really agreed to it, they steeled their resolve. Sure, we'll take the challenge. They chose to do it outside while Cameron went to change into clothes that wouldn't restrict her movement. Cameron fixed her sleeves and looked up when they were picking who to start with. All at once. Are you crazy? They were shocked. How could this woman be so daring? There were many of them, so why would she want a simultaneous fight? Cameron's patience waned. Stop hesitating. I'm a woman, and I'm not worried, so why are you worried? They stood there and looked at Waylon, who was standing at one side. He nodded without hesitation. He trusted Cameron. We'll go ahead then. They all rushed toward Cameron. Evelyn was hiding in a dark corner and watching, shocked. This woman knows how to fight. Even if she could, she was a woman, and her opponents were men. Evelyn was waiting to see the woman begging them to stop. When that happened, she would pretend to stop them, and her kindness would move Waylon. Cameron ended it quickly. Her quick fists and kicks had managed to send the few men on the ground within 15 minutes. Chapter 2644. Evelyn was bewildered. How was that possible? Cameron rubbed her wrist. I've trained in martial arts since I was a kid. I had tough physical training in school and the army and have fought with countless people, a lot of good ones too. I've learned from them and used their skills during the fight, so it would be impossible for you to win just by your brute strength. You could only do it with speed and cooperation. The few men stood up. She had managed to deal with the strong attacks of several people by herself, and the speed of her moves was faster than their eyes, completely catching them off guard. They were impressed by her abilities. That was why Waylon had agreed to let them fight. He knew that they weren't able to fight her. The leader of the bunch apologized, and the others followed. Miss Woods, there's no need to hide anymore. Come out. I saw you, shouted Cameron. Everyone turned around. Evelyn shuddered. How did she see me? She awkwardly smiled and walked out from behind a wall. I'm sorry, I saw you fighting and wanted to stop it, but I didn't expect you to be such a good fighter. Cameron chuckled and was not friendly about it. If you wanted to stop us, you could have done it sooner. Why did you hide there for so long? Were you waiting for me to be badly beaten up before you stepped out? Evelyn looked flustered after being called out. Miss Southern, what did I do to cause this hostility? Evelyn's smile was awkward, but she still remained composed in front of everyone. She looked at the men from the night banquet. I'm sorry. I really wanted to stop the fight because you were doing this for me, but I didn't want to put Willie on the spot too. She looked as if she was considerate to Waylon, but she was just trying to gauge Cameron's personality better. The men looked at each other, and one of them finally said something. Miss Woods, I think you must have misunderstood. She didn't use dirty tricks even when she was fighting so many of us and still won. That impressed us. Based on her personality, I don't think she would want to fight us if she really was against you. Their masters had told them that a person's character could be seen through how they fought. The people who had nothing to fight wouldn't care about wins or losses and wouldn't use dirty tactics. Even if Cameron was devious, she wouldn't have wanted to fight them. Evelyn froze. What's happening? Why are they suddenly on her side? Evelyn. Waylon walked forward. Evelyn tried to explain when she saw him. Willie, listen. He calmly cut her off. I shouldn't have let Morrison bring you to the night banquet. Evelyn paused and looked into Waylon's calm eyes. She started panicking. Willie, what are you talking about? We're friends. Waylon coolly said, you're just someone I went to university with. We're not friends. Her legs were soft while her face turned pale. Bullshit. Why did you help me then? Why did you let me stay by your side if you don't want me? Only I could get so close to you in university. Chapter 2645. Waylon smiled sadly. Helping you doesn't mean anything. In that situation, I would have helped even if it was some other girl. As for letting you stay by my side, you said you wanted to thank me. Did I ever agree to it? You kept following us around. His words struck her so hard because it sounded as if her feelings had just been a joke. No way. Evelyn didn't want to accept that. You lied. You thought I was special, so you treated me differently. Why didn't you stop me when Morrison brought me to join the night banquet then? How would she have gotten into the night banquet if he didn't find her special? Waylon rubbed his temple. Because Morrison was friends with you, and I wanted to make you a couple. Of course I wouldn't stop him. Evelyn was overwhelmed. Waylon had never done anything for her, and it was all one-sided. She had been under the impression that she was special to him. Even if he rejected her confession, she still believed that only she could get into his heart. But what did Waylon say? He was trying to be Morrison's wingman. Why had she gotten close to Morrison? Because he was close to Waylon. She wanted Morrison's help to get one step closer to Waylon. However, he ended up wanting to make her and another man a couple. Evelyn's tears started falling. Wayne, I don't believe you. You're lying. I don't have the patience to lie to you, Evelyn. Do you think I don't know what you've done? Waylon was starting to lose patience. Evelyn was so devastated she couldn't speak. Waylon continued to call her out. When you had drinks with Damon, he drove you home after that, but you left after he drove away and paid off some thugs to play along with you. The men from the night banquet were shocked and looked toward her. Play along with her? When you said you were attacked by thugs, was it all fake? Evelyn shook her head. No, not at all, it was because his phone was with me, so I went out to give it back to him. No matter how dark the bar was, you wouldn't take the wrong phone by mistake. Besides, don't you know what your phone looks like? Waylon's few words tore her mask away. She tried to explain. I drank a little too much and didn't notice. Drinking too much and being drunk are two different things. Someone who drank too much would still be conscious. Someone drunk would be unconscious. You didn't look drunk in the 6th alley. Waylon's retort made her take a few steps back. Her face was as pale as a sheet of paper under the light. He looked at her with cold eyes. You've had this planned out when you asked Damon out for a drink. You took his phone because you didn't want me to get in touch with him. After bumping into the thugs and calling me, you guessed I would call him. To ensure that Damon wouldn't tell me that you were drinking with him, and even if he did, you could still trick him with the excuse of wanting to return his phone. Evelyn took 2 more steps back. She was afraid when she saw how everyone was looking at her, and she wanted to run. Chapter 2646. Step after step, Waylon approached Evelyn with an indifferent smile. The main reason for your downfall is your poor acting skills. Do you really think real criminals will give you a chance to call for help? Evelyn dropped to the ground. She looked at Waylon and grabbed his hand. I'm sorry, Willie, I shouldn't have done that. Please forgive me. Waylon pulled his hand out of her grasp and looked at her coldly. I'm banning you from the night banquet from now on. If I hear you make any more rumors about anything else, I'll come after you. After that, he turned to Cameron, wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and went back into the house. The members from the night banquet looked at Evelyn and shook their heads. Apparently, they were wrong about Evelyn. All of them ignored Evelyn, who was sitting on the ground, and left as well. Inside the villa, Waylon carried Cameron to the couch. He picked up her hand and examined the bruises on her knuckles that she had gotten when she fought with them just now. He stroked her hand and said, "Why did you have to fight them so hard? Does it hurt?" She chuckled and said nonchalantly, "Not really, isn't getting bruises here and there a normal thing for people like us? Besides, I have to admit that guy's fist is hard. I felt like I was hitting a rock." Waylon lifted his head to look at her and said, "I'm feeling a little regret for saying yes now." "Nope, don't ever think of taking that back. A word spoken is an arrow let fly. Besides, I have to show them who's the boss. If not, they might not listen to me in the future." He let out a helpless laugh and caressed her cheek. "It's exactly because I know you agreed to it. After all, even if I said no, you wouldn't listen to me either, right?" Cameron looked outside through the window. Evelyn was already gone. You were going to match her up with Morrison. They used to be very close in the past, so everyone thought they would be together. Cameron chuckled. What a poor man. At Bassburg, Morrison was having his meal when he sneezed. He touched his nose and wondered who was talking bad about him behind his back. Leah raised her head and said, "Thank you for your help last time." Morrison put down the fork and wiped his mouth with tissue paper. "Don't flatter yourself. I helped you because you said you were going to give me money. Otherwise, I wouldn't have helped you." Leah lowered her head in silence. Morrison looked at her and asked, "What's with that face? You make it look like I'm bullying you. You're overthinking." "I'm thanking you from the bottom of my heart," Leah said as she forced a smile on her face. "Anyway, I think we won't be seeing each other anymore after this meal." "Don't worry, I won't ask you for help anymore." Morrison was slightly stunned. "All right then," he replied. He picked up a glass of water, and then he suddenly realized something. Are you all right?" "Huh?" Leah was dumbfounded. "Don't you think it's a bit stupid to kill yourself for a man who doesn't even love you? You're an adult, so you should be able to understand that. Besides, there are so many men in this world. You don't have to cling to one." He couldn't stand it when a woman belittled herself for a man. "You have a good family background and a pretty face. Don't you think it's a little bit of a waste for you to cling to a man? Listen to me. Don't do anything stupid. If you kill yourself, everything will be over. He won't be sad or shed a single tear for your death. He might even celebrate it. Do you really want that to happen? Leah was rendered speechless. Does he think I'm going to kill myself? Chapter 2647. Just when Leah was about to say something, Morrison raised his hand to stop her and continued. All right, you don't have to say anything, you only live once, so you need to cherish your own life. I can introduce some good men to you if you want. All of them have good family backgrounds and good looks. I'm sure you'll find one that you like. Of course, if you don't like men from Stoslow, I can find someone for you from Basberg. Leah smiled awkwardly. Thank you for your advice. Don't mention it. We're friends, after all. Give me 2 days. I'll compile the profile of all good men in Basberg for you to choose from. 2 days later, Morrison presented Leah with the profile of some unmarried rich young men in Basberg. The corner of Leah's lips twitched as she looked at Morrison, who sat on the couch opposite her. Where did you get these from? Dating agency, Morrison replied matter-of-factly. According to them, all of these young men come from wealthy families, and they studied overseas, so I picked these 10 that match your family background the most. Pretty neat, right? Leah picked up those profiles and looked through them one by one. Some of them came from Basberg, while others came from Asperia, Raural City, and Coralia. The problem was that she knew most of them, and she was kind of astounded when she also saw James Tell's profile. What do you think? They're pretty good, right? Some of them are lawyers, while others are celebrities or doctoral students. They match your background perfectly. He picked up his cup of coffee and took a sip. He felt that he was such a good friend. He had never been so serious when it came to finding himself a date. Leah put down the profiles and said, I know them all. He was stumped and nearly spurted his coffee. He put down the cup and said, Isn't that good? Leah picked up Isaiah's profile and said, My father set up a blind date for me with this guy, and he didn't like me. After that, she picked up another profile and continued. This guy is James Tell. He's a popular celebrity, and I doubt he'd want to find a girlfriend now since he's making advances in his career. Besides, it's going to be very tiring to be a celebrity's girlfriend, and most importantly, he's not my type. She picked up the remaining profiles and commented on them one after another. This lawyer might look like a fine man, but he's a playboy. 2 of my former classmates were his girlfriends. As far as I know, he just recently got a new girlfriend. As for this fellow, he's a traditional man. He wants his wife to be a full-time housewife, so I'm not going to sacrifice my career for him. And these 2, one of them is a celibate, while the other has a bad reputation. Hold on for a second, I asked you to pick one. I didn't ask you to reject them all, said Morrison. Leah crossed her arms in front of her chest and said, Why can't I reject them? If you were going to choose one of them to be your future partner, who would you choose? Putting his hand on his chin, Morrison glanced through the profiles and said, If they were all women, I'd choose him. He pointed at a man who was still serving in the military. His name was Isaac Portman. Leah picked up his profile. Amongst the 10 people, he did not have any scandals, and Leah did not know much about him. Morrison took the profile from her hand and said, If you don't feel sure about it, I can help you to check him. Leah just smiled at him without saying anything. Several days later, at Yarramore, the crew had decided to start the shooting in the middle of the year, and the investors had been decided as well. At present, what they needed to do was to look for the perfect candidates for the roles. After that, they could start the shooting. Chapter 2648. It was just that no one expected Donnie would let Freya decide who would play the protagonist roles. Freya felt slightly stressed as she did not want to let Donnie down by picking the wrong candidates. She was not very good at selecting characters, so she figured that she needed Daisy's help. Freya came to Blue Valley Manor and let Daisy have a look at the script. Daisy, you've got to help me this time. I'm scared I'll ruin Mr. Winslow's movie if I make the wrong decision. I need to get it done as soon as possible so it won't affect the shooting time. Daisy looked at her and chuckled. There's still an audition session, right? Besides, you still have about 6 months left. I'm sure it'll be enough. Yes, it's enough, but not everyone is free at all times. I'm just worried the actor won't be able to commit to the project if some unexpected event happens. Besides, I need to go back to my country for the audition in a month. I need to pick 2 candidates from so many actors. This is the first time I'm so stressed out, and I'm very nervous, Freya said helplessly. There is a first time for everything, so I can understand. How about this? I'll ask Charlie to give you some help when you get back. He's a celebrity manager, so he has a very spot-on insight. He was the one who chose many of my scripts, so I trust him, Daisy comforted. Freya hugged her with a smile and said, "Thank you so much, Daisy. You're the best." Daisy smiled, "We're friends, and you're my sister-in-law, so of course, I'll help you. Don't worry, leave it to me. I'll help you to inform Charlie about it." When Knollys came downstairs, he saw Daisy doing something in front of her computer. He approached her and saw the script on the table. He picked up the script and asked, "Isn't this Freya's script?" Daisy stole a glance at him and chuckled while her fingers typed away on the keyboard. "Yeah, she asked me for help with the role. I'm talking to Charlie now." Knollys sat beside her and asked, "Why don't you ask me? I'm a shareholder of Tenet." Daisy was stunned. After a few seconds, she smacked her head and chuckled. "Oh yeah, I've forgotten about that." Knollys wrapped her in his arms and kissed her forehead. "It seems like all of the nutrients that should have gone to your head have been sapped away by our babies so much that your brain can't function at its optimal capacity anymore. So, why do I need you if I need my brain?" Daisy replied without any hesitation, and Knollys was amused. Meanwhile, Charlie replied to her, and Daisy immediately told Freya about the good news. Knollys simmered with laughter when he saw how happy Daisy was. "Do you want to hear another good piece of news?" She turned her head to look at him. "What is it?" "The series you shot with James will go on air this Wednesday." After the shooting was over, Shannon planned to release the series after the new year. Daisy blinked and asked, "How come I didn't get the message?" Knollys stroked her cheek and replied, "That's because I helped you to read all of your messages. You're pregnant right now, so I can't let you worry about too many things." She leaned on Knollys and chuckled. "So, are you going to be my manager now?" Knollys lowered his head to look at her and pressed his lips on her forehead. "That'll be my pleasure." At the same time, a certain video platform in Basburg released the trailer of The Fog on their platform. The crew member only did the promotion on their Facebook page. They did not hire anyone for PR and kept a low profile. After the trailer was released, the netizens shared it more than 190,000 times, and there were more than 100,000 comments. Meanwhile, James was heavily discussed on the internet for a hilarious reason. Chapter 2649. The netizens had seen James on the cast list, but they did not realize that he was, in fact, Simon. James's fans all became excited when they saw his name. #Oh gosh. He finally has gotten the right drama for himself. Hashtag thanks to Daisy, James has finally found the right place for himself, ha ha ha. Hashtag after watching the trailer, I realize that his acting skills have improved a lot. In the past, he used to take on the role of a rich young man, and he looked like himself no matter what kind of role he played. I hope that he won't let us down after this series has been released. Hashtag as expected of a series with double male leads. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of ship him and Helios. Meanwhile, at Tenet, when Charlie saw the trailer and the netizens' comments, he harumphed and said, HMPH. He has done well this time. I'll give him a 90. His assistant was stunned. Only 90. Don't you think he deserves a higher score? Charlie crossed his arms in front of his chest and said, considering his previous acting skills, I'd only give him a score of 75 if it were in the past. I'm already very kind enough to give him a score of 90. He might get arrogant if I give him a higher score. His assistant laughed. As he was preparing a cup of coffee for Charlie, he said, but I have to admit that James has changed a lot after taking part in this series. He has become more mature. Besides, the character he played this time was pretty challenging. I think he may try other roles after a few more years. Charlie took over the cup of coffee his assistant handed him and took a sip. Well, he still has a long way to go. By the way, Donnie from Dorywood is preparing a suspense series. He plans to find candidates from our entertainment industry and shoot the series in our country. Many A-list actors and actresses have submitted their profiles to compete for a role in the series after the news came out. Why are you telling me this? Charlie said, do you think celebrities from our company will stand a chance? Even a celebrity with a huge fan base won't stand a chance, let alone celebrities from our company. Donnie was a director of international fame. He never used any celebrities with a huge fan base or other popular celebrities. All TV series actors and actresses who could work on the big screen had acting skills. People wouldn't be able to see the shadow of the last character they played in the current character that they were playing. The reason Helios could be successful was that he had changed his image. To make himself look tougher, he grew a beard and tanned himself. He indeed looked tougher, but he also did not pay much attention to his own appearance right now. His assistant sighed. Maybe our company's celebrities will stand a chance. Although the chance might be slim, who knows if Lady Luck will smile at us this time. At the same time, Daisy sent Charlie an email. Charlie put the cup of coffee down and opened up the document attached to the email. Suddenly, he sprang up from his chair. His assistant asked, "What's wrong?" Charlie raised his head to look at him and said, "Lady Luck has smiled at us." In a coffee shop, Morrison handed Leah's profile to the man sitting in front of him. "I'm sorry for taking up a few minutes of your time, Mr. Portman. This is the girl we selected for you at our matchmaking agency." Morrison had no other choice but to pretend to be a staff from the matchmaking agency. Isaac took over the profile and glanced through it. Meanwhile, Morrison handed Leah's photo to him. "She's an interpreter, and honestly, I think she's the right fit for you. If you want to meet her, I can set up a meeting for you two now." Isaac looked at Morrison and took over the photo. Morrison sipped on his coffee while observing Isaac's expression. "She's quite a beauty, right?" "Yeah." Isaac smiled and put the photo down. "But I'm not interested in a woman who's older than me." Morrison was stumped. "Why?" "I just don't like it. I'm more into girls who are younger than me. I like them to depend on me. Honestly, I don't want my future partner to be a career-minded woman." Chapter 2650. Morrison did not expect Isaac to reject Leah. He was stunned for a moment before he said, "But people always say that a wife 3 years older than the husband ensures a richer life. She might look a bit mature in the photo, but she looks just like a young girl in real life. I'm sorry, I can't accept my partner being older than me, so no matter how excellent she is, I won't accept her." After Isaac had finished speaking, he rose to his feet and left. "Mr. Portman," Morrison clicked his tongue after Isaac left. He leaned on the back of the chair and mumbled, "He can't accept her because she's older than him. So, he can accept it if she's 18. What a ridiculous reason." Leah stood up from behind and sat in front of him. She said with a smile on her face, "So, you failed." Morrison crossed his arms in front of his chest and said, "This isn't for me. This is for you. I'm helping you to get a boyfriend. I don't understand why you still can laugh at this point. All right, relax. It's normal for him to reject me since I'm older than him. Besides, I really am not ready to start a relationship yet. Anyway, thank you for your help." Leah chuckled. She just couldn't bring herself to reject him since he was so serious about helping her to get a boyfriend. Morrison squinted and said, "Now you're telling me that you're not ready for a relationship yet after I've done so many things for you." "I didn't say I wanted to. Are you kidding me?" Morrison was furious. He had been working for nothing. Leah laughed. "You were the one who thought I was going to kill myself because of a man, and you said to help me look for a boyfriend. Since you're so serious about it, I thought you'd be hurt if I rejected you." Morrison was rendered speechless. He picked up the cup and finished his coffee in one gulp. After that, he put the cup down and continued, "If that's not what you meant, then why did you say those things to me the other day?" She was stunned for a moment and smiled helplessly. What I was talking about the other day is that I'm going to continue to be an interpreter. That's why I said we won't be seeing each other anymore. Once again, Morrison was tongue-tied. Whipping up a smile, Leah said, "It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I hope we'll have the chance to meet again in the future. I'll leave now." She took her purse and left. When she came to the car park, she saw Zephyr. She was stunned for a moment, but she soon snapped herself back to reality and offered him a smile. "What are you doing here?" Zephyr approached her and said, "Leah, I'm sorry for what happened last time." "You don't have to apologize to me," Leah said, maintaining the smile on her face. "I've already moved on, Zephyr. I'm serious when I say that I want you to be happy." Just when she was about to get into her car, Zephyr grabbed her arm. "Can't we just go back to the way things were, Leah? Just like the old days?" Leah turned her head to look at him. Just as she was about to say something, Morrison suddenly walked over and grabbed Zephyr's arm. "Hey, sir, you have a girlfriend, so you should stop pestering her." Leah was a bit surprised to see Morrison there. Zephyr freed himself from Morrison's grip and said, "This is something between her and me." Morrison sneered. "Between you and her? You already have a girlfriend, and you still want her to keep on liking you. What's wrong with you? If you run after two hares, you will catch neither. I can't believe that people nowadays are so casual when it comes to relationships." Zephyr's face sank. "Then what about you? Aren't you her boyfriend? Why are you helping her to set up a blind date with other men?" Morrison was stunned, and before he could say anything, Zephyr grabbed him by his collar and pressed on. "Aren't you treating her like your toy as well? What are you doing?" "Zephyr, let go of him." Leah hastily pushed Zephyr away and stood in front of Morrison. "I asked him to help me. This is something between him and me. It isn't your business." "Leah, we won't be able to go back to how we used to be anymore." Leah shouted and pushed Morrison into her car. She went to the driving seat and closed the door.